Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into how everything, and I mean literally everything we think we know about ancient history, is currently being completely rewritten. Thanks to modern technology, we are peeling back the layers of the past so much faster than ever before. We're talking about lost cities, totally erased pharaohs, and crazy new dating methods that could completely upend our understanding of human civilization. It is an absolutely thrilling time for archaeology, and well, I just can't wait to walk you through it.
Okay, I want you to just wrap your head around the sheer scale of this question for a second. What if the Great Pyramid of Giza is actually 25,000 years old, right? That would make this astonishing monument older than the invention of farming. It would make it older than written language itself. This idea completely challenges the very foundation of our historical timeline, and it really forces us to ask, who on Earth could have built such sophisticated monuments that incredibly far back?
So, here is our roadmap for today. First up, rewriting the ancient timeline. Number 2, secrets beneath the sand. Third, the builders and the erased, and we'll wrap up with mysteries beyond Egypt.
All right, diving into part 1, rewriting the ancient timeline, shifting the historical clock.
Now, the absolutely crucial thing to understand here is the massive gap between two very different schools of thought. You see, most historians and archaeologists stick with the traditional dating, which places the Great Pyramid at around 4,500 years old, built during Egypt's 4th dynasty for Pharaoh Khufu. However, there's some controversial new research proposing a radically different timeline. Italian researcher Alberto Donini is putting forward an alternative based on a technique called the relative erosion method, and his method suggests the pyramid could actually be closer to 25,000 years old. Let's actually break down how Donini's relative erosion method works, because it's fascinating. It acts almost like a giant natural stopwatch. So originally, the Great Pyramid was wrapped in this smooth white limestone. But after a massive earthquake back in the year 1303, Egyptians pulled off a lot of those outer stones to rebuild Cairo. That event exposed sections of the limestone pavement at the base that had been hidden for thousands of years, right next to pavement that had been out in the elements since day one. What Donini did was look at the weather damage, the wind, the rain, the heat, that accumulated over those 675 years of new exposure. He had calculated how long it would take to create the really massive damage seen on the older stones. And because wear and tear isn't perfectly even, he measured 12 different spots around the pyramid and averaged them together. The resulting estimate? Around 23,000 BCA. Now, while this is highly debated, for sure, it's a super interesting application of geological science. Moving right along to Section 2, Secrets Beneath the Sand, where modern tech meets ancient stone. Before we get into the wild discoveries they're making, we need to understand the tools. We're talking about ground-penetrating radar, or GPR, and electrical resistive tomography, ERT. Honestly, you can think of these cutting-edge remote sensing tools as essentially X-ray glasses for archaeologists. ERT shoots electrical currents into the ground to measure resistance, while GPR sends radar signals down to map whatever bounces back. Used together, they let us see completely buried history without moving a single grain of sand. And guys, what they are finding with these X-ray glasses is absolutely incredible. Just look at this list of subterranean discoveries at Giza. Over in the Western Cemetery, they found this highly resistive 33-foot L-shaped anomaly. The weirdest part? It was deliberately backfilled with sand and gravel after it was built. As for why? Well, we don't know yet. Then, satellite radar picked up a hidden 108-foot mound that perfectly aligns with the pyramids and the Sphinx. This strongly suggests there might be a second Sphinx buried in the sand, which, by the way, is an idea actually backed up by ancient Egyptian artwork called the Dream Stele. Further scans revealed an entire underground complex with 8 massive vertical shafts dropping nearly 2,000 feet, which connect to these giant, totally symmetrical 260-foot chambers. Some researchers are even pointing out that this layout perfectly mirrors the legendary mythological halls of Amonti, the ancient Egyptian underworld. It's quite literally a lost world right beneath our feet.
Okay, Section 3, the builders and the erased, the humans behind the monuments.
For the longest time, we just assumed pyramids were strictly the final resting places for ultra-wealthy elites and royalty, right? But recent bone analysis tells a completely different story. Researchers studied 110 human skeletons from a site called Tombos in modern-day Sudan, which was an ancient region of Nubia conquered by Egypt. By examining the bones and specifically looking for these distinct crests and ridges caused by severe tendon and ligament stress, they proved these were people who performed grueling, hard physical labor. It totally challenges our old assumptions, proving that lower-class workers were also granted the immense honor of being buried in pyramids. And I think this brilliantly illustrates how history is just so much more complex than we give it credit for. Which brings us to one of Egypt's greatest yet somehow almost forgotten rulers, Pharaoh Hatshepsut.
She was a woman who seized power to rule as pharaoh, and let me tell you, she was brilliant at political branding. To legitimize her rule in a deeply traditional, heavily male-dominated society, she went ahead and claimed a divine birthright straight from the deity Amun. She even wore the traditional false beard of the pharaohs. But here's the kicker. She didn't actually hide her gender. She cleverly blended male and female grammar in her monumental inscriptions, famously referring to herself as His Majesty herself.
Hatshepsut actually led Egypt into an amazing era of peace and incredible prosperity from 1479 to 1458 BCE. But sadly, her legacy wouldn't remain untouched for long. Decades after she passed away, her stepson and successor, Thutmose III, initiated this tragic and totally deliberate campaign to violently chisel her name and face off of literally every monument in Egypt. He tried to physically erase her from history. And talk about incredibly petty, Thutmose III even built his own temple right next to hers in the Valley of the Kings, deliberately making his exactly 11 feet higher than hers just to overshadow her legacy. Thankfully, his whole erasure project failed, and careful archaeologists in the 19th century finally pieced her true magnificent story back together.
Finally, Section 4, Mysteries Beyond Egypt, looking at the active vault of the Judean desert. So, zooming out from Egypt for a minute, using rappelling equipment and advanced scans across miles of desert cliffs, archaeologists are uncovering incredible finds that are just perfectly preserved by the utter lack of humidity out there. Just recently, they found a 2,200-year-old pyramid acting as a guard tower. But if you dig even deeper, you find a gigantic 26-gallon plant fiber basket that is 10,000 years old. That actually predates the invention of pottery entirely. Add to that some previously unpublished Dead Sea Scrolls and, get this, a 6,000-year-old skeleton that was naturally, partially mummified. We're talking complete with skin, tendons, and hair intact. The preservation is just mind-blowing.
Okay, check out this number, 3,800. That represents the age in years of a tiny piece of fabric recently discovered that actually measures less than a single inch. But this fragment? It's monumental. It's the oldest known evidence of fabric dyed with scarlet worm paint. That's an incredibly rare, vivid red dye made from insects harvested from oak trees. It was highly valued and strictly reserved for sacred fabrics, which basically proves that sophisticated textile dyeing and the use of animals for this industry existed nearly 4,000 years ago.
And I've got one more astonishing number for you, 1,000. That is the age in years of a single ancient seed found back in 1980. Why does that matter, you ask? Because scientists actually successfully cultivated this 1,000-year-old seed. It took 14 years, but it grew into a mysterious 10-foot-tall tree they named Sheba. It's believed to belong to an extinct lineage of trees mentioned in ancient religious texts. And amazingly, its leaves and resins are rich in compounds that actually have proven medicinal and skin-soothing properties. They quite literally resurrected ancient botanical medicine. How cool is that?
Which brings us to the ultimate takeaway of this explainer. We've seen how modern technology, from ground-penetrating radar to biological cultivation, is rewriting our timelines and giving a voice back to the people that history tried to erase. So I want to leave you with this final thought. If we are still actively finding massive buried cities under the Giza Plateau, and we're out here literally resurrecting 1,000-year-old seeds into living trees, what else is hiding right under our feet just waiting to be discovered? Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll catch you in the next one.